What is the meaning of this outrage? This is completely unacceptable. I demand an explanation right now! They are calling the Cranky Old Historian what?
Well, hello. Welcome back to the Cranky Old Historian. I am John McKay. I am the Cranky Old Historian. And today is going to be a little bit different. I had planned on doing a video about another aspect of history that really interests me, called historiography, the study of historical writings. Something happened, and I decided to make this one instead. This one may or may not be your cup of tea, depending on... I'm not really exactly sure what cup of tea I might be for somebody, but because this channel is just me, just babbling on. I'm an old teacher, old paramedic, old soldier, and kind of just saying what I feel like saying. But yesterday, I was called a Nazi, or referred to as one, by one of my own family members. It really upset me, obviously. It was in the middle of a unexpected political rant in what I thought was going to be just a nice lunch day, nice lunch at my house. And it brought up several things that I really wanted to talk about. Number one being, what's a Nazi? You hear that today in political parlance a lot. Like, what is a Nazi? What is a Nazi? A Nazi is not Donald Trump in the White House. I'll just lay that out there right now. Was there actual Nazis? Yes, and most people know that. Was Adolf Hitler a Nazi? Yes. Did he start the Nazi Party? No. Okay. Was the Nazi Party a right-wing death cult against Jews? Well, I hesitate to use the word right-wing, and we'll get more into that, because it had elements of right-wing and left-wing. And was it against Jews? Oh, absolutely. I don't think you can get around that one. It's anti-Semitic as it could possibly get. But it's much deeper than that. And one of the things I want to talk about today was when I was called a Nazi yesterday, I did not take it well at all. And this one, it wounded me very deeply, and I want to explain why. To people who are flinging that word around, why this word is so incredibly offensive. First of all, let's talk about the actual Nazis. Where does the word Nazi come from? Well, it comes from the name of a German political party. The origins started at the very tail end of World War I. It stands for, and I cannot pronounce the German. Even when I was stationed in Germany, my German girlfriend kept asking me not to speak in German because I said it so badly. That's a true story. But it stands for National Socialist German Workers' Party. Okay. There's an axiom of political philosophy or history that if you see the word peoples in any name, that means it's a repressive totalitarian dictatorship, which in this case it was. So you've got this morass, you've got this terrible economic conditions, you've got highly dissatisfied veteran soldiers who are politically powerful. You've got a number of parties that sprang up, Volks parties, people's parties, the Nazi, the forerunners to the Nazis, and I can't think of their name off the top of my head, weren't called that, but there was a large number of them, populist kind of things, of people who they were highly dissatisfied with their government. They were furious about what happened at the Versailles Conference. They were starving, a lot of them. And there was a lot of street fighting between the Volks parties, of which the incipient Nazis were one of them, and the communists. And Hitler was not the one who formed the Nazi Party, and he was actually still in the army. He'd been a corporal World War I. He was a messenger, and he was actually wounded quite badly. He was actually in the hospital when the war ended, and he was a wounded war hero. And He was still in the army, and he was ordered by his commanding officer to join one of these groups because they kind of wanted to keep an eye on it. The army was around, very small, and they were worried about this. You know, they wanted to keep the communists out, of course, but they were also worried about these various Volksgroups. So Hitler had been ordered to join the National Socialists, what became the NSDAP, the Nazis. He was member number 55. His card still exists. It's in a museum somewhere. And it says member number 555. They started numbering members at 500 to make it look like they had a whole lot more. But he was officially the 55th member of this party. Long story short, him and the Nazi Party in 1923 tried to take over the Bavarian government. This is called the Beer-Hall-Putsch. And it failed. He was put on trial, and it was a very sympathetic judge. Sentenced him to house arrest. So he stayed at home, had all his friends there, and he and the others wrote a book called Mein Kampf, My Struggle. Now, he didn't write all of it, but he definitely agreed with all of it. It's not really known who wrote most of it. It's thought that his propaganda chief, Joseph Goebbels, wrote a lot of it, and I think Ernest Röhm had something to do with it, and there was a couple of others. And in there's a saying in history, there's a saying in politics, there's a saying in life. If they're telling you what they're going to do, listen to them. He literally laid out this plan, and there was no bones about it. He laid out exactly what he planned to do, including what he was going to do to the Jews. It's in there in black and white. Came out in, I believe, 1925. And by the way, I will add that in some parts of the world today, this book is still a best-selling book. You can buy it on Amazon. It's not banned by any stretch of the imagination. It's very popular in the Islamic world. And I will add also that the Muslims aligned themselves closely with him. If you want to talk about modern-day Nazis, well, look and see who their friends were. Anyhow, in there, he lays out what he's planning on doing and why. And he gives a good defense. And it lays out that the reason everything is happening is because of this, and the Jews. And what he does is he blames Jewish bankers. Now, like a lot of propaganda, there's a kernel of truth in pretty much everything he's saying. And then he takes that and exploits it. This is classic propaganda. So he blames the Jews for everything. And he said, if we could get rid of the Jews. Now, he does not lay out the whole what happened. He doesn't lay out. He just blames the Jews. He said the Jews are responsible for this, that, and the other. Nazis become a major political party. They are actually elected to office in 1932. Hitler is elected as chancellor. And von Bismarck, who was the great general of World War I, is over him. Well, then he dies. Long story short, after he dies, Hitler calls for a vote in the German parliament, the Reichstag. And they openly vote to give him complete power as dictator and then to dissolve themselves. Now, the fact that there was a Nazi stormtrooper, an SA member, standing at each one of them's elbow when they did that, I guess is beside the point. But they did. He was elected. You hear, well, he was elected in office just like Trump was. It's like, yes and no. He was elected to a office. He then seized power and dissolved their Congress, the Reichstag. And from there, it was off. And so these are the Nazis. It was a German political party in World War II. And the Nazi Party ended up becoming this multi-headed monster. I've actually known real Nazis. Talked to them. Slept in their house. I had a girlfriend in Germany when I was stationed over there whose father had been a Waffen SS tank commander. Now the Waffen SS was the military branch of the Nazi Party, and they were ideological soldiers, and they were considered both some of the best troops the Germans had and the absolute most ruthless. No doubt about it. Long story short, when you call someone a Nazi, when you are referring to the Nazis, you're referring to one thing and one thing alone. You're referring to the National Socialist German Workers' Party with Adolf Hitler at its head from 1933 to 1945, who outright murdered not only 6 million Jews, but an estimated 20 million total people, actually wiped out the population of several other ethnic groups like gypsies and homosexuals. Went after anything considered against the Reich with a vengeance. These were no kidding killers. This is not funny in the slightest. This is not a name that you just flippantly put out. Well, you're just a Nazi. That's not funny. That's not amusing. That's not descriptive. But he's doing this, he's doing that. No, he's not doing anything. There are no camps. And yeah, I'm sure I'll get some wackos in the comments about that. There are no camps like the Nazi-style concentration camps. There are no death camps. I've been to these. I'm not amused by the talk about this. I will add, one of the Nazis that I actually met, he was a captain in the Waffen SS. He was a tank company commander. And he was kind of a scary guy. He was older. He had balding hair. He was a banker. He looked like a typical aging banker, but the look in his eye was different. And we talked at length. He really didn't like Hitler very much. He said he was stupid. He said they should have won the war, then killed all the Jews. He was and I was like really shocked when he said that. And I asked him about that. He said, I don't care. I don't have any Jewish friends. I don't know any Jews. He wants to kill them. No skin off my back. He's one of those kind of people. And he said, but it harmed us. He said it stirred up the wrong kind of people by what we did. He had actually sworn allegiance to Hitler personally and had a personally autographed photograph from him. To Klaus from Adolf with love. It was quite an experience to see that. And he had taken the blood oath. And this stems back from the early days of the Nazis. And in one of those street fights in the 1920s, there was a German thug by the name of Horst Wiesel that was killed in the street fighting. And he was carrying a flag when he did, and his blood got on the flag. And Horst Wiesel was just a street thug. I mean, he was a nothing. But Hitler's propaganda chief, Goebbels, seized on this. He said, this is a great opportunity, and elevated that flag to like almost a religious icon. And if you were a true Nazi, you would swear allegiance to Adolf Hitler while grasping that flag. And this guy had done that. And had the lightning bolt tattoo on his arm and the blood and honor knife and all that. So this was a real Nazi. And he had this great job. And I asked him, I said, how did you do this? And he said, well, the governor of Germany after the war actually, gave me this job and told me to do it. And the governor, I might add, was George Patton. Okay, but you were a Nazi. And he laughed. He said, you don't even know your own history. And at the time, no, I didn't. And we talked about denazifying Germany, which we did with a vengeance. But you still had to make the railroads run. You still had to make, the banks run. You still had to have water flowing through the pipes. And, quite frankly, these guys were the best guys to do the job. And so, Patton and the later German governors recognized this and said, okay, you guys just behave yourself, do your job, and everything's going to be fine. And, no, you won't go before a Nuremberg tribunal or anything like that. And that's what happened. So, they went and just lived regular lives. But these were Nazis. Was I afraid when I was in his presence? Yeah, nervous. He was my girlfriend's father. That was what I was mostly nervous about. But these were the real Nazis. These were the ones who were willing to shoot people in the head because they were different, who were willing to put people in ovens, who were willing to invade other countries and just basically do scorched earth and massacre the entire population. These are people who ran medical experiments. And I can't bring myself to talk more about that. These are people who were honestly some of the most evil people you will ever read about. These are the kind of people that our own serial killers would recoil from because there's too evil for them. And yet, yesterday, one of my own family members called me that and said that I had to admit that because this current administration is a Nazi government. Well, no, it's not. And that's the second half. Now we've established what Nazis were. Are there any Nazis today? Part of me wants to say no, and part of me wants to say yes. Is there an official Nazi party? Not in Germany. So that's Nazis. And there's that. So let's talk for a couple of minutes about why is this hateful? Why is this? If you're a conservative, I don't need to explain this to you. This is hateful language. But why is it being used? I'll be honest, I'm not really sure. It's just that this is the ultimate thing I can call you, and I'm not really sure what the leftist endgame is with this. Because this is the nuclear weapon. When they get more mad at you for doing something else, which is going to happen, what are they going to call you then? They've already called you a Nazi. I mean, where do you go from here? There's no place to go. You're a Nazi. That's it. So I'm not really sure what that's from. What is it intended to do? Is it intended to piss you off? Well, it pissed me off. Pardon my French. It upset me terribly. Do I believe that Trump is a Nazi? Absolutely not. Do I believe he's behaving as one? Absolutely not. Well, and the defense was, well, he is invading people's houses and dragging them out without trial and then throwing them out of the country without anything. No. The vast majority of these people already had deportation orders. And this is easy to look up if you will do it. Well, the big thing was these ICE agents aren't even really police officers. Well, they're federal agents. Yes, they are. No, they put out a letter themselves that said they're not police officers. No. Well, it's all over. I said, where are you getting this from? Oh, it's all over the place. No, it's not. I'm sure that's being said. I have no doubt that that's being said. Is it true? Absolutely not. Here's what I'm encouraging you to do. Don't believe anything anybody tells you, including me, and only believe half of what you see yourself with your own eyes. Look all of this stuff up carefully. Actually research it. This is what I encourage everybody to do. I saw a video on X the other day. I'm on X a lot because they're great. But I saw this one, and I just can't get it off my mind. It bothers me so bad. And it was one of these leftist women, and she was hysterical is a good word, and I know I've been married long enough to know don't call women hysterical, but this was a good term for this woman. She was hysterical, and she was actually talking about murdering her own children before killing herself because they didn't have the money to flee the country. They couldn't go anywhere, and she knew that she was going to get picked up any day now. And I don't know if she was, what her immigration status was or what the deal was. But she needed to murder her children first. Otherwise, there's no telling what ICE will do to them. If you truly believe this, if you truly believe your own government is going to do something like that, it's time for you to pick up arms against it. So either stack up or shut up. That's basically how I feel about it. Do I think that they're doing this? No. I spent a lot of time in the field, as a paramedic, as a firefighter. I actually knew a lot of the immigration guys back when they were called INS, Immigration Naturalization Service, before it became ICE. And they had a rough job, and the fact, you had an idiot every once in a while, but most of them were really good-hearted people who really wanted to protect their nation, and they also had a great heart for these immigrants. Why? A lot of these immigrants are very exploited. Some of the less kind things my compatriots on the conservative right have said is, we haven't seen Democrats this upset since we took away their slaves in 1865. Well, when you have Congress critters up there talking that we can't get rid of these illegals, otherwise who's going to wipe your butts, or who's going to pick your cotton, or who's going to make your food, or who's going to clean your house, all of which has been said. Sat there and watched them, couldn't believe that they were actually saying that, but they were. And you're thinking, these people, they're not interested in them as people. They're interested in them as something they can exploit. These are horrible people. I want people to come here. I think every conservative is fine with that. I think that you have to look at ideas as being more complex than you can present in a 10-second soundbite or a 140 character tweet or any amount of network news. And that is, no, I don't want people just waltzing in. I'd like people to look at them. I don't want terrorists just waltzing in with a RPG slung over their shoulder. I would not feel comfortable with that. If you got Joe Schmo from whatever country else and he's showing up at the fence with his wife and a couple of kids saying, look, I just want to come here and work. I'm a good person. I'm clean. I don't have any criminal record. I'm not going to cause any trouble. I just want to work here. Hey, more of you. Happy to have you. That's what we were created for. Bring us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. Absolutely. But man, let's just take an eyeball at them first. I don't think that's asking too much. To say that we are an abhorrent political party from 80 plus years ago that ended over a decade before I was even born, to say that I'm one of these people because I actually want people to be deported if they, A, just came through the fence, and B, did crimes when they came here, which some have. I will even grant that it's not even a majority. I don't care if it's 1% or 99%. If we've got people causing trouble here, get rid of them. I'm one of these weird people. I'm considered a squish on my side because I'm kind of soft about crime in one regard, in one serious regard. If you are convicted of, robbing people, and this is your 40th crime or whatever, you hear these ridiculous sentences these days. Or, this man has had 40 criminal charges before, and he spent a grand total of 6 months in jail. This is ridiculous. Here's the deal. Once you reach a point, we used to call it 3 strikes and you're out. I'm all for that. Make it 4 strikes. Make it 5 strikes. Make it 10 strikes and you're out. I don't care. But here's the deal. At some point, you have proven yourself unable, for whatever reason, to live in a polite society. I want you put away. I don't want you tortured. I don't care if you have 24-hour cable. I don't care if they put you up in a Ritz-Carlton. As long as you are away from the rest of the population where you can't hurt the rest of us, I'm fine with that. And that's my belief about crime. Just separate us away. But then we come to the third part of this. How do we respond? Well, as you know, I'm a Christian. And Christ has commanded us. He didn't suggest. He didn't ask. He didn't say, wow, it's a pretty good idea. Or, here, you might want to pray over this. He said, he commanded you. He said, should I forgive them 7 times? That's what he was asked for what they did. And he says, forgive them 70 times 7. And that's a shorthand way of in that society at that time of saying forever, permanently. If they commit 1,000 offenses against you, forgive them 1,000 times. So I'm commanded by my Lord to forgive this person. And I do. I honestly do. He sets the model up. Christ sets the model up not only to forgive, but to forget. I have put it beside me. That's hard. That's harder. He did not command us to forget, but he set up the model, and I understand that that's what I should do, is forget it. Should I forget it? Yes. And I'll work on that. Should I allow myself to go into that situation again? No. No. The only excuse that's really permissible in the New Testament for divorce is sexual impropriety. If your husband or wife has an affair on you, yeah, divorce them, period. And if you want to. If you're willing to stay with them, because they're clearly not a believer. And if you're willing to stay with them, then they will gain favor through your faith, is what it says. If a person beats you, I've dealt with a lot of that, both professionally as a paramedic and personally with friends of ours. It doesn't say anything about that in the Bible, but I think it's safe to say, forgive, try to forget, but don't put yourself in that position again. So, sadly, I'm not going to put myself in that position again with this particular person. I do forgive them. I feel sorry for them. They are not in a good place, and they are consumed with this being a Nazi government and all that goes with that. And they're utterly convinced that I'm a Nazi also. So, okay, that's them. There was a great physicist named Richard Feynman. And if you ever get a chance to read his books, they're great. Even his books on physics, they're very approachable. He was a brilliant guy. He was on the Manhattan Project. He helped design the A-bomb. And he's also the one who figured out what happened to the Challenger when it exploded in 1985. And, or whenever it was, 84, 85, one of those years. He liked to teach first-year freshman physics. He really liked talking about that stuff. And then he's got a couple of autobiographies, and the title of one of them is a piece of advice he said was the greatest piece of advice he ever got as a person. He said, "What do you care what other people think of you?" Well, they're calling me a Nazi. Okay. As long as they don't call me late for dinner. So how you deal with things like this define who you are. And how what people think of you is not really all that terribly important. Especially if you know, like I've talked to kids that I taught, and they're very upset. Well, so-and-so said such and such about me. I said, okay, you've got horns on the top of your head. They go, what? You've got horns on the top of your head, and you shouldn't have horns on the top of your head. You're bad for having horns on the top. And they look at me. I said, does that upset you? And they said, no. Why should it upset me? And it's like, well, I just told you something bad. And I said, there's something bad about you. And I said it was bad. They said, well, it's not true. Why should I get upset about it? Exactly. No, you don't have horns. And if you do, who cares? This is the point of all this. We have a society today where people are at each other's throats, calling each other abhorrent names. Both sides are doing this. All sides are doing this. People have forgotten the real power of what this country is. We're not really a melting pot. We're more like a beef stew. Because a melting pot means that we would lose our individuality and our collective identity from where we came from and make it all just one. And we're not really that. I'm a Scottish American. You know, Scotland means a lot to me. And my 8th great grandfather came from Scotland. Came over on a boat called the Ship of the Bachelor of Leith, landed in Cape Fear, North Carolina in 1775. The biggest thing that we are as a person, the thing that defines Americans is that we work together. That out of e pluribus unum, which is on the money, this is our national motto, out of many one. We are one people. We're the Americans. As Bill Murray says in the great movie Stripes, we're the mutts of the world. You know, all the great people stayed in the other countries. All the riffraff and the unwanted came here, which is true. You know, we're the riffraff, the unwanted, the mutts of the world. And we came here and we made a great country out of being mutts with each other. And before you start taking on airs and saying, well, I'm a better mutt than you are, it's like, no, you're not. You're just another mutt like me. And I think that's the power of America, and that's the strength of America, and that's the beauty of America. We're not the kind of people to put people in ovens. We're not the kind of people that make people afraid to say what they think. I have zero fear of saying this. Do I think a leftist person might take great offense at this and try to call the SWAT team in? Well, we don't have a SWAT team here, so good luck with that. You know, but other than that, would they do it? If they could. But see, here's the deal. This is where rubber meets the road and your faith meets you. My faith says that I have zero to worry about. Nothing is going to happen to me that God does not allow, has not planned for, has not provided for. Did not make me for. Before time began, I might add. He placed all of us here for this time. You were made for a time such as this. There's a saying going around, what if you were made for a time such? You were made for a time such as this. You were made to be exactly where you are, doing what you are, with the people around you. And now the choice comes in is, are you going to hate the people that you're around? If you can't be with the one you love the one you're with, was a song from my youth. And there's a lot of truth in that one. I don't hate anybody. I truly don't. And no, I shouldn't. Am I horribly hurt by what happened yesterday? Yes, I am. But honestly, it was a long time coming. This was something that's been brewing for a very, very long time. And no, I'm not going to place myself in that position again. Do I hope that we can come back to a civil society? Yes. Do I think we will? No. Honestly don't. And I promise you that I'm not going to do altar calls or really push my faith on anyone on this, but I'm here to tell you, I honestly believe time is short. You need to make yourself right with God. And I think your heart is telling you the same thing. Love the ones that you're around. Forgive the wounds. Stay who you are. Know you are made for a purpose, and know you are made perfectly by God for this time, this place, and this purpose. And know that He loves you more purely than anyone else could possibly love you. And I really hope to see you the next time here on the Cranky Old Historian.